Welcome to the Happy in the Mess podcast. We are your hosts, Marlena, Sherry, and Matthew. We are therapists and coaches, and we want to share our own stories with you, as well as the wisdom, insights, and tips we've learned along the way. Thanks for tuning in to this episode.
So the question for today is, was One Republic wrong? Is it really too late to apologize? Here to talk about how to repair relationship injuries are two of the most amazing, I put this in there, so I'm going to say it, competent, amazing, awesome, excellent coaches and counselors that I know. Marlena Del Hierro and Sherry Timko. Marlena is our spiritual singles coach. And Sherry is our couples relationship coach. And I'm always impressed by these wonderful minds that I get to sit with each week, not just for the podcast, but to hear the awesome things that they're doing in their own practices and their own lives. And I want to just take a second and really highlight and hear from them about that. So, Sherry, what are you up to right now, and where can people find you?
I've got a really good couples retreat that's coming up, and I'm going to do activities to help couples laugh together. I think that couples give up the laughter in the busyness of life. But the place to find all the information about what I'm currently doing is in the Facebook group, the Date Night Community, and it's focused on long-term relationships and how to keep them vibrant and connected.
Awesome. Sounds like some great opportunities. What about you, Marlena?
Yeah, I'm helping singles thrive in their life, whether that be in their single life and not wanting to be in a relationship or getting into one. And you can find my stuff at coachmarlena.com. And if you go to coachmarlena.com/meditation, you can get some free audio meditations that help you be happy regardless of your circumstances, because I'm all about raising the positive vibes. And I also just want to say how much I enjoy and love this podcast. It's therapy for me too. We're all therapists and coaches, and it's our own group therapy as well as giving kind of pseudo therapy to others.
Absolutely. And obviously it's awesome to have you both and to be able to work with you both. And so I'm Matthew Morgan, and I will kind of round out this. We have everything from singles up to dating and to marriage, and then how we do that. And I'm just the weirdo that catches everybody in between. So I love the misfits, the neurodivergent folks who are struggling, particularly with spiritual issues and connection with the divine. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm at MatthewEMorgan.com, or you can check me out at Misfit Refuge on most socials. So
Matthew, I love your t-shirt. For people who can't see it, he's got a purple ribbon with the stay and the semicolon, and then below it, it says, "Tomorrow needs you." And I just love that message that you're sending here today.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's my push for that. It is definitely important. And there are people who struggle daily with a lot of those intrusive thoughts on that aspect. So I will be intrusive, but in the other way. So back on track. I apologize for getting off track. I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. And if you get that reference, probably a good time to schedule your colonoscopy as well. So
All right, Matthew,
reference.
thank you.
Yep.
I don't always get all of the cultural references. I
Oh,
appreciate the cross the bridge.
my goal is to be whatever therapeutic version of Gilmore Girls there is, where it's just this constant string of random references. And if people get a quarter of them, I think it's fabulous. When I was teaching, I always had the goal. I said, I want to make one kid in my class laugh. Just one, like everybody else is like, I want everybody to bust up laughing. I want one person to cut up and everybody else to say, I don't know what's going on. So thank you for balancing that out. So, oh goodness, humor it's important. We're talking about laughing in our relationships. We're trying to play. We're trying to be happy with, our singleness, which is not something people hear a lot about. I think happiness is definitely an underappreciated commodity in our lives. So as we talk about relationship repairs, the first thing that I thought of was definitely the apology. And there's so many bad apologies out there. So I just kind of wanted to kick off with, what are some examples? What have you heard, or either through your practice or even your personal lives, like what are some of the worst apologies that you have caught out there?
Yeah, I think one of the worst kinds of apologies is really the lack of apology, where it's barely acknowledged or not at all, or just skirted by and said, well, or a denial of feelings, like, well, I'm sorry, but you just shouldn't feel that way because that's not how I meant it. I think it's a real classic bad apology. Or I'm sorry, but anything that starts like that has that but in it is usually you're off to a bad start with your apology if there's a but and a defensiveness of your side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In
Absolutely. It's a great.
general, but negates whatever came before it.
That's right.
So if you put but in a sentence, you're saying, I don't actually mean that first part.
Well, no offense,
Mhm.
but I don't know that I agree with it. Oh, wait, sorry. One of the big
Exactly.
ones.
Mhm.
One of the big ones, right? If you have to say no offense, we're probably in
Mhm.
trouble. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, nice. Any other bad apologies? Any other things that
Oh,
we've caught?
I hate this topic because really I am in the business of relationship repairs. Um, Unfortunately, you can't be close to someone else without them hurting you. And because we're all different, you're going to get hurt. So, yeah, this is something that I've spent a lot of time and energy thinking about is these apologies. Anything that blames the other person. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but you made me do it.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but this is your fault. An excuse, making an excuse for why it's not your fault. I'm sorry I was late, but it was the weather, it was the traffic, it was my coworker, it was the schedule, it was your fault because you didn't tell me 15 minutes earlier. It's like all of those reasons that it's not your fault. It doesn't really help the relationship. Oh, my favorite is the non-specific. I'm sorry. I have no idea what that means or what it might be for. And sometimes it's, I'm sorry that you're upset. So if you're saying you're sorry that I'm upset, I know that you don't take any responsibility or accountability for what just happened. Um, oh, another one is, all right, I'll just do two more. Minimizing or dismissing the hurt that you caused.
Mhm.
And the last one is one given under duress. Okay, fine, fine, I'm sorry. Like, that's not really an apology.
That's no.
Mm. Yes, yes, Sherry, I agree with all of those and have been on the receiving end. I might have been even on the giving end. And this is not like a judgment. Like, I just want our listeners to know too, like we've all made mistakes with our own apologies. And hopefully this episode is to help you learn how to make better ones so that you can repair the relationship, right? It's not taught. We're not taught how to apologize. There's no class on this, on how to like properly engage with another to resolve conflict.
I don't know. A lot of us had the experience of being little and having your parents say, you need to apologize. Go say you're sorry to so and so. And I think a lot of this goes back to what that experience was when we were
Mm,
kids and having to apologize when you didn't understand what the problem was, or having to apologize under duress, or it becoming just something that you said so that people
mm.
would get off your case. The
Yeah.
real problem to all of this is that I have seen bad apologies be almost as bad or as bad as the thing that actually happened to hurt the other person. So when
Hmm.
you give a bad apology, there's this chance that you're going to give a double whammy to this
Hmm.
person who you care about and want to have a relationship with.
Right, which is so important that we talk about that too, is that your apology, if not executed well, can actually do more damage.
Absolutely. And that I will echo that. I mean, we've seen it again and again of, that the first offense is what happened. The second offense is the way the apology was carried out. And some great examples, right? I'm sorry, but I'm sorry you feel that way. Or I'm sorry for whatever I did, is that classic, apology. It's like,
Vague and yeah.
maybe not,
I,
Hmm.
I need to put that one on my list.
yeah,
Hmm.
that one, not to be sexist, but there is a maybe a gender that prefers that, I have heard, just for my own thing, right?
You think? You don't say, Matthew. You don't say.
Maybe I'm gonna own this
Yeah.
one, right? It's I'm sorry for whatever you're upset. Just can we just go back to live in peace? And so um, and I love the delving into childhood and recognizing like, oh, this is when our parents said this is what happened. And we're trying to grow. And it's not to place blame, but it's how do we grow through this? How do we take what we've been given and make it something better so that our relationships will thrive? And this is not just a couples issue. We were talking about that right beforehand, right? I mean, Marlena, it's how do we approach this as, in a dating relationship or just two coworkers or random
To
person
family. Yeah.
to family. Ooh.
To children.
To
There's this
children.
whole movement about we should not have to apologize to our kids. But one of the most powerful things that you can do as a parent is take accountability for the times when you don't do it well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's powerful. And I think just sitting with that for a moment and, it's okay to apologize as a parent. It doesn't undermine authority. It hopefully even bolsters it because it shows that we're human and we can work through things. And going back to what you said, most of us aren't taught to apologize. What a better model than to have a parent come up and say, this is the way to do it.
Absolutely.
So,
It's so
yeah.
nourishing to receive a really good apology. It makes you
Yeah.
actually want to stay, in my experience, in the relationship and try harder and be closer because you feel
I,
seen.
I will do you one further. I have a structure that I use for doing apologies when I'm teaching people, and I very often hold myself accountable to using it. When you give a good apology, you deal with your own stuff, and there's a real sense of integrity about giving a really good apology. So it isn't just the receiving that feels really good. There's something like you discharge something when you're accountable and you promise that you're going to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And that's a great segue. So if the three of us are sitting here at the judging table, as couples or two individuals are fighting and they offer an apology, what characteristics are we looking for? What's our judging? I don't know. This is my weird random analogy I've come up with for the day, but like, what are we looking for? What are the elements that we really want to see in this apology?
All right. Naming what you're apologizing for
Specifically.
specifically.
Yeah.
Giving some voice to the hurt that you caused. So acknowledging the other person's feelings or the impact on them. Taking accountability is saying how you're going to avoid hurting them that way in the future. And I like that to be very, very specific, because if you have to apologize for the same thing a second time, that means that your strategy didn't work. And it is really helpful for the person who's trying to forgive you for something to know that you're actively working towards that apology. And then the last thing that I suggest is actually asking for forgiveness. We say, I'm sorry, but rarely do people say, will you forgive me? And that feels so vulnerable, but there's also a real power in having the other person say, yes, I forgive you for this.
I love that last one, Sherry. You're right. That one's left out a lot. And I think too, the second to last one that you mentioned, which I call like the true making amends, is how can I make this right? Inviting the other person into the conversation, not just coming up with a strategy on your own, but like, how can I make this up to you? What's needed here for you to feel like you can forgive and move on? I think is also important, that it's not just a one way, like the apologizer doesn't get to just choose how this goes down. The other person gets a say in how this goes down if they're both willing to come to the table and talk.
Yeah. The word I think of is restitution, but restitution is
Mm,
too strong of a word for most situations. But you're looking for that thing that you can do to make up for. That is a little bit different than the strategy I was talking about. So, like,
mm,
if I yell at my kids, my strategy in my apology might be next time I'm going to step outside the room and calm down and then come back. And what you're talking about is there anything I can do that makes up for that? So can I don't know, do something special with you or take something off your plate? Or can I can I intervene in on your behalf in some way? So
mhm.
I think both elements are really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that maybe even within the dynamic of the individuals, is this something that does require some restitution or to go back and make up for whatever happened, or does the dynamic need something more future oriented of how do we fix this, going forward? How do we make sure that we don't step on that same landmine again and again and again? You
Mhm.
know,
Gary Chapman has a book, Five Languages of Apology, I think is what it's called, and it plays off of his five love languages
Mhm.
structure. What he talks about is that each of us needs something different in an apology for it to feel genuine and really touch our heart. And so the structure that I use hits all five of those in the same apology so that you don't have to necessarily know what is the thing that your partner or the other person that you're talking to is looking for, but knowing what the person you're talking to is looking for in that apology helps you know which of those is most important.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's real good.
Yeah, and what we're talking about here too is doing some planning and preparation work before clamoring to get that forgiveness or to hurry it up so that we can move on. Or it requires a little bit of patience, I think, all of this. And there's a lot of fear with, I think, making an apology, even sometimes receiving it. It's very vulnerable. And so I just want to like acknowledge the obstacles that get in the way. One of which might be fear. If I do this, then it might rupture the relationship where it's usually no secret as to what happened. Like if someone's feeling hurt, it's not usually a big secret, but like this acknowledgement of it, I think there's fear that this might ruin the relationship if there's true acknowledgement and or um, a desperation without much care follow through, like so desperate to keep the relationship intact that there's not a lot of tact when it's given. So yeah, there's sometimes some internal emotional regulation that needs to happen for the person preparing for the apology in order to do this well. It's not usually spontaneous. I've yet to meet people who do good apologies spontaneously. Like usually there needs to
Yeah,
be some thought. Yeah.
I can't apologize well when I'm emotionally flooded. When I'm dysregulated, I will give like terrible apologies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the the structure that I use, if I start in that and I can't do it, it's a real clear sign to me that I am not calm enough to do it yet. Now we're talking about how hard it is to give an apology. I also want to point out how hard it is to get an apology because a
Mm,
lot of times the instinct is to say, yeah, you're right. You hurt me. And here's all the ways that you hurt me. And then to pile on with that apology. And that can be a real disaster when someone comes in that place of grounding and integrity and they are very vulnerable and say, I'm sorry. And the other person is like, yeah, you should feel that way.
Oh, but that feels so good, Sherry. I mean, sometimes the person wrong needs to feel, needs to have their say. I mean, like that's really hard too, right? Because you may not be ready to receive it. Sometimes time is really needed before any of this happens, right? For both parties, because there is a temptation when you felt really wronged to really lay it on thick because you do feel like you're justified in that hurt or that anger. And justifiable anger and hurt sometimes really can also ruin the whole experience of this. And again, cause more rupture rather than repair.
Absolutely. And I appreciate going back, like one of the key moments of this is we need to regulate ourselves. We need to
Yes.
bring ourselves to that point of making sure our systems are online. And I know I've talked in the past about, being able to pause or be able to walk away or find a better time for these kind of things. Trying to apologize when you've got 32 kids running around screaming with bows and arrows and throwing food, like maybe not the best time. You want to set it up in a really good way.
And make sure both parties have eaten, as we've talked about before. A lot of
Always.
arguments and fights happen when somebody or both parties are hungry. So, well fed and well rested.
Tired and pain.
Yep.
Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, halt. Yeah.
Yep. Those are yep, absolutely. And that is important, right? Because we want to set this up for the best success possible, right? And we want the apology to go well because that's what repairs the relationship, not continues to rupture it and to move it apart. Now, Sherry, I want to go back because you had this great structure, but you didn't say the point at which, like, if I'm the offending person or the offending person, like, where can I defend myself? Where can I give my list of reasons for what I did to hurt this other person?
Why? So you would like the time when it's justified to say it was okay that I hurt you? Is that what you're asking here?
What do you think? Is that, I mean, is that part of that structure,
No, it is not, because repair is about taking personal responsibility, and it's usually not the time to talk about the context or what caused the circumstances. Now, that's a useful discussion to have, but that can't come if the other person isn't willing to have that discussion. And so a lot of times the beginning of that discussion is a good apology. I mean, the other thing that really tanks an apology is giving an apology because you expect an apology. And so there's this like tit for tat, and I'm going to apologize. And what I really want to do is make you feel guilty for not apologizing or prompt you that it's your turn.
Yeah, we talk about how to do these sort of make amends in 12-step groups, and I really appreciate their perspective in that even if you were only 10% wrong, let's say, in an argument, how important it is to clean up your 10% side of the street and to not point out, take other people's inventory or point out their 90%. That is not the time when you are making an apology and trying to repair something. This is not the time to call out their side. It is simply to acknowledge your side with integrity and being specific and being brief and acknowledging the hurt. And it's really hard. And if when you're not in the space truly to do that and you're expecting the other person to come back with their own apology, like, now that I've said my 10% part that I'm going to own here, now I'm going to wait for your 90 to show up, you're going to be sorely disappointed, and it's not genuine. And so there's a lot of preparation, for example, people who are in those programs that they do to do this well, so that they're genuine about it. And then it really does start bridging the thing, but acknowledging that you may never get the apology you want from the other party. The point is to make sure that you're in integrity for your own wellness, your own wholeness.
All right, so back to your question, Matthew, because it is a good question. We are talking about just one way of making repairs in a relationship. And what you're referencing is a different way of making repairs. But having a deep conversation about the process of what happened, that can really make a repair in the relationship. And there may be a time when you would need to say, look, this happened and I responded poorly, but I have to go back to the idea that this is not okay for our relationship. So can we talk about that? But that's not necessarily in this, like, there's different ways of making repairs, and that's not necessarily part of this way of making a repair.
Right.
So this is maybe step one in the process of many 35 others that we could do to repair a relationship, which probably would be great for a future episode. Hint, hint. So, but I appreciate it, and obviously I just throw the cat in the mix there, and I appreciate you being able to jump on that and remembering that this is a long process. The relationships are a little bit longer game. So as we wrap up, what's our take home today for each of you? Maybe if you had your real quick social media sentence, what do we do as far as repairing relationships?
If you need to give an apology, do it. I would do your prep work, emotionally regulate, and do it, because it can be so, again, nourishing for the relationship. And we're human and we're going to make mistakes, and it's unreasonable to think that we won't ever owe an apology to somebody. And so really keeping kind of eyes on your own paper in that sense, I think it's like the more that we come to the table with that sort of humility, not humiliation, but just humility on that we're not perfect, can do a lot for making a relationship sustainable.
Absolutely.
Oh, so many thoughts. Choose whether it's appropriate to apologize, and then don't apologize out of habit. I think sometimes we've been socialized or raised to just say, I'm sorry all the time, and it loses its meaning. And there are lots of situations where it's really not necessary or even appropriate to be apologizing. And so that when you take that off the table, there's then room to make your apologies much more sincere and genuine and purposeful. And the purpose of a good apology is twofold. It is to repair the relationship, but it is also to restore your integrity in your own personal values and your own personal growth.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. I think that was my big take home just listening to you both today, is just remembering that, the apology is just as much about the apologizer as it is the apologizee, and that it helps soften
Hmm.
our hearts as well. So,
Oh, yeah.
as always, I appreciate both of you, and all you do, and encouragement if people are watching and they want to know more, be able to work on these things. Check out the socials, the links. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, review. If this is something that really fits and you want to know more, give us an email and let us know, like, what else can we do? What else could I'd share you? And again, I think you have 34 other ways to repair a relationship, and I really want to delve into that, but I apologize that we just don't have the time for it.
You don't need to
So
apologize for that. That would be a common when
that's
it gets to
outside of
be
my
what it
control.
is.
We appreciate all of our listeners and subscribers. Keep hitting the bell, and we will talk to you all next week. Take care and enjoy being happy in the mess.